Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. Today, we have the pleasure of talking with Eric Brotman. Hey, Eric, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Absolutely, Chris. It's great to be here. I'm the CEO of BFG Financial Advisors in suburban Maryland and have been at this almost 30 years. The company is celebrating our 20th anniversary, and we represent clients nationwide for private wealth and financial planning and investment management. And I'm delighted to be here.
Awesome. We're delighted to have you. Your setup so far is the only one that rivals mine. It looks like it's even better. So good. Kudos to you, sir.
Well, thank you. No, I hosted a podcast for 5 years. And so I built a studio here in the office, and I hosted the Don't Retire, Graduate podcast for 5 years. And I'm on hiatus right now because I'm getting ready to launch the new version of the book. And so I wanted to concentrate on getting that out to the public.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely hear about your book before we're done here today. So, how exactly did you get into this wild world of finance, sir?
Well, I came into this business the traditional way as an English major.
Yes.
Like literally an English major. I studied English and psychology in school and was contemplating law school or teaching or something that's a pretty traditional path for an English major, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to work out of college at Legg Mason here in Baltimore at the home office of a major brokerage firm. And I was in the legal department. And the plan was to learn estates and trusts and eventually to go to law school. And I was taking the LSATs and applying. And I fell in love with the financial piece and decided not to go to law school. In fact, I paid a deposit to a law school that I ate to not go. And it was the best money I ever spent in my life, was not going to law school.
Mm-hmm.
So I started a practice in my early 20s. I had no network. I had no natural market. It was a slog for about 5 years, but I built my education and the credentialing, and eventually helped another more senior advisors launch a firm. And 4 years later, went off on my own. And it's I was one full-time and one part-time person, and now we're 20 full-time people and 6 financial advisors, and growing like crazy and having a lot of fun doing it.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. So you started with another firm? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I did. I started with an insurance company, a life insurance company, and because I was thinking estate planning. So whether it was law or whether it was insurance or whether it was financial, I thought, I'll cut my teeth in that way. And so I started doing life insurance work and some long-term care type things. And I realized I wanted to do financial planning, and you can't do that in an insurance company. I don't care what the insurance company tells you. It's all about their own product line and their own stuff. And you're a salesperson. You're a hired gun for that insurance company. Regardless of how terrific you might be and how objective you try to be, you're still an employee.
Mm.
And so I knew I had to leave that. And I went out and earned the CFP back in 1998. And I helped a guy, David Berman, here locally start a firm. And 4 years into our work together, I mean, I literally learned how to build it from the ground up. And he and I went slightly different directions, and we had what we referred to as a graduation, not a divorce. We're still dear friends. And it was one of those things where he said, "You're ready, go get him," and sent me out of the locker room on my way to the pros, kind of thing. It was very, very cool. Super guy, really good guy, wonderful mentor, wonderful friend, and to this day, still a terrific sounding board. And so as a result, in 2003, on Halloween 2003, I launched what was then Brotman Financial Group. And over the years, we've grown, and we actually have added 2 senior folks, one of whom we bought a company in Cincinnati, Ohio, and added those folks to the firm, and their initials were also BFG. So we decided just to be BFG Financial because both sets of clients knew the BFG thing, and it just felt like kismet. So we did it. And then when we added another senior level person, she just adopted that brand as well. And this became, I hope, a household name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, BFG, it flows well.
Well, then they made that movie about the big friendly giant. That didn't do us any favors, actually.
Oh.
But I do
Yeah.
have people, and I know I'm going to keep your show clean, but I have had people say, BFG is kind of a BFD. So that felt good. That felt good.
Yeah. Hey, amen. So, was the plan from the get-go always to kind of strike out on your own, like
No,
go independent?
no. I didn't know that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. In fact, like most financial advisors, I never intended to run a company. I intended to
Mm-hmm.
grow a practice. So I would say I feel a little bit like Forrest Gump, Chris, in that so many things happened and they were fortuitous accidents that I happened to be there for. Honestly, and I know luck is what you make it, and part of it's showing up, and I get all of that. But the reality is that some of the twists and turns and decisions in the road um, that led me here were accidental. They wound up being very good decisions, and I'm blessed by them. But they were not on purpose. I did not set out to start a company or to have payroll and HR and IT and physical plant and renting space. And I never meant to do that. All I wanted to do was grow a practice and take care of families. And it's become something else. But one of the nice things is I get to use not only the English major doing some writing and speaking and things, but I also get to use the itch that I have for teaching to work with young up and coming advisors and to help them grow into our environment here. And that's a ton of fun. Mentoring and coaching, I love to do. Managing, I don't do. I manage no people, Chris. I'm terrible at it. No one wants me as their boss. I'm not a good boss. I'm a terrific mentor, coach, teacher, friend, ally, all those things, advocate, but I'm not a supervisor or manager at all. That's not my skill set.
Mm. Well, I think awareness around what your skill set is makes you a good manager or not. So
You'd have to pull our folks. I think they're delighted that I'm not the one they go to when they need, time off or something's up, or I'm not the
yeah.
guy. I will help them with case design and with working with families and with how to handle certain situations and complex planning. And that for me is a lot of fun. It's problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the operational nuts and bolts, like, I joke that we have people here who love to be on the runway with cones, and I'm at 50,000 feet. I have the vision. I sort of know where we want to go, and I can help
Mm-hmm.
push us there and motivate people to want to run through a wall. But in terms of the how to get there, like, I dream it up and then other people have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And they do, to their credit. I have an amazing group here of people, not only managers, but, start to finish, we've got a great team.
Mm-hmm. Any tips or strategies for finding and recruiting and kind of keeping great team members?
Yes, and actually, that's three different questions, so I'm going to tackle them individually.
Please.
Finding great employees depends what you're looking for, of course, but if you're looking to find young people and you're looking to groom young people into the business, which I think is probably the best way to join our industry, because unlike accounting and law and medicine, where there's a career path, our industry lacks a set career path. It lacks the one designation and the one stepping stone that you can take. So I think young people need a fair amount of guidance. So what we like to do is we like to hire folks right out of college, and we provide them with what is really as much as a 5-year apprenticeship. That takes the right kind of person to agree to something like that, because young people, as you know, and as you might remember coming out of school, we all thought we were hot stuff. We all thought we should be being paid more than we were being paid. It's human. We all thought we could come in and we were ready for anything. And the truth of the matter is, it pays to watch and to learn and to listen. And so we set up a scholarship, actually, at one of the local universities, and I got very active in one of the local universities here in Baltimore County, at Stevenson University. And not only did we endow a scholarship there, but I served on their board of trustees for 11 years. It's become, I'm not an alumnus, but it's become like my adopted school locally, because I went to school in Philadelphia, not here locally. And we've gotten to know the folks in the business school and the finance departments and all these different things, and basically said, introduce us to your best and brightest every year, because we have a career path for them. So we kind of cherry pick now, because they're saying this is a great place for our graduates to go work. And there's enough of them here to have that conversation and say, yeah, this is the way I transitioned from Stevenson to BFG. And so it's become a pipeline. And I think there's value in that. When we hire more experienced folks, it's much more of a crapshoot because you have to unbreak habits. It doesn't matter who it is or what industry you're in. If we're doing things in a certain way and we feel that our way is, if not perfect, it's at least the best way that we know of, it's not that we're not open to other suggestions. Of course, there are going to be lots of different perspectives. But generally speaking, we have a way to do things. We have people know, other advisors know when a client is with BFG. They've seen our deliverables. It's all uniquely ours. It's hard to break somebody of habits that are different, particularly long-term habits that are different, whereas we can groom from go, and our young people can come in, they can get licensed, they can get trained, they can get educated, they can serve in insurance and investment operations, they can be client service associates, they can be associates, they can be a second chair advisor and be the one taking the notes and help the frontline relationship manager right away, because that takes bedside manner, it takes time. But it's a career path, and we've had an enormous amount of success turning 22-year-old recent graduates into 27, 28, 29-year-old stars.
Wow.
And that's been pretty cool. And so now young people are literally reaching out to us saying, hey, do you have a spot on your bus? We want to be on your bus. So we're spending less time looking for folks and more time choosing the right folks for us.
Mm-hmm. So you've almost created like a school or an academy for creating great financial advisors.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
I mean, these young people are learning the right way to do things. And you know as well as I do, our business is very old, very male, and very Caucasian. It just is. Our business looks, well, like me. Mm-hmm. And our team does not. Our team is much more diverse than that on lots of levels.
Oh,
we have incredible women in our office. We have incredible members of our team who are people of color who have all different backgrounds, which has been wonderful. And they're all different ages. So we have advisors in 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. Because when you hire a financial advisor, first of all, you don't want your parents' advisor, ever. And second of all, you don't want your advisor to be 20 years older than you, because you want them to be in the business when you retire or when you have a family event or when you need them most. Mm. So I want my doctor to be younger than me. I want my accountant and my lawyer to be younger than me. And yes, I would want my financial advisor to be younger than me, not necessarily inexperienced. So having a continuum and having the gray-haired guy in the corner like me, but also having somebody young who can work with the next generation of the family, creates an enormous amount of comfort for clients who know that they're leaving money, sometimes a lot of money, to the next generation, and they don't want that next generation to be flying blind. Mm. They want them to know who they're going to call and already have a relationship with them, and it can't be with me. Mm-hmm. And I'm too old for that. Quite frankly, the kids I don't speak their language and they don't speak mine, and they don't want their mom and dad's advisor. They just don't.
Yeah. So it sounds like, continuously adding fresh blood, fresh perspectives to the team actually helps with retention as well through multi-generational clients.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Because one of the things that firms have the hardest time with, even terrific firms, they have a hard time maintaining relationships beyond the death of one spouse or the other, especially if they've only catered to one spouse. And some of these firms are still doing that, and let's call it what it is. It's 1958 somewhere. They're talking to the husband and ignoring the wife, and then the wife outlives the husband and says, "You guys don't even know I exist. I'm going somewhere else."
Yeah.
That's just true. So instead, we make sure not to do that in the first place. But we also make sure that there are already people in place ready to help the next generation. And so one of the things firms struggle with is they struggle with keeping clients after someone dies. They struggle with keeping clients after a divorce. We have an unbelievable track record. I don't know that I can quantify it for you, but it's ridiculously strong at having clients divorce and both of them saying, we want to stay with you. And so they'll each have a different advisor on the team, and we make sure that we have confidentiality and that we don't break that. But at the end of the day, keeping both spouses in a divorce is unheard of,
Mm.
and that's typical for us, and that speaks to what we do, I think, and the way we do it, and our people.
Hmm. Yeah, I would imagine normally just out of principle, they're like, I'm done with everything. But you guys are just you've set the tone too high. They're like, except for BFG.
Well, I hope so. And what no one wants to feel like they're at the mercy of their spouse's advisors.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to feel that. And I hope my wife doesn't feel that way. I mean, we have another financial advisor in the firm who meets with us, and I take off my advisor hat and put on my husband hat, and we sit down with one of the other advisors here to as closely approximate the experience as a couple as we can. I mean, the reality is it's hard because I know sort of what's happening behind the scenes, but I do my very best to make sure that she's heard and that she's comfortable and that she knows, who am I calling if something happens to you? Am I going to be okay? And who do I call? That's really, if you can answer those two questions for clients, especially clients of means, am I going to be okay? And who do I call? And if those questions have the right answer, yes, you're going to be okay, and you're going to call this person, then you have a much better chance at being this family's trusted advisor for decades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're essentially at that point becoming, a trusted confidant, quasi family member, if not close, very close friend.
It feels like that a lot, and
Yeah.
we hear those kinds of things, and we're at the various events. We're at the weddings. We're at the birthday parties or the anniversary parties. We're at the funerals. We're at the table when there's a major event. And we do feel like part of the family, and not in a slimy, sleazy, hey, we show up whenever there's a transaction to be done kind of way, but in a yeah, we've been with you all along. Like I can't tell you how many folks I have helped make work optional, where I've been working with them for 10 or 20 or X number of years, and now they're not working anymore. And they had more than just a quantifiable, they had a qualitative life plan for retirement. It's not just that they don't work. And we have lots of folks who are now clients of ours who I remember when they were born, and making sure that their parents could put them through school. And now they're 21, 22, 25, starting their first job, and they're coming on board with one of our young advisors. And it's totally gratifying because I remember them as 3-year-olds, and here they are as launched adults, ideally without student loans, choosing the right employee benefits and starting their careers and starting their financial lives early, which most people don't instinctively do. And it's rewarding. It's a lot of fun.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. That's kind of an intangible benefit of doing this. Over the decades, you literally see people grow before your eyes.
Well, I know teachers report that it's kind of amazing if they're at a school long enough. Sometimes they have some of the kids of their former students in their
Oh
class.
yeah, yeah,
It's one thing to have a sibling. It's another thing to have somebody's kids.
yeah.
But that's kind of what it feels like. And if you're at this long enough where you've seen these plans not only get created, maybe built out of the ether, but they get created, they get implemented, and then they're successful at doing whatever it was that we all set out to try and do. Whether it was a vacation home, or whether it was a college education, or whether it was selling a business, whatever it looks like. And it's so much fun to see that come through to fruition and then be able to take the next steps with folks. And at this point, I get to visit with lots of clients throughout the year, and I get to spend time just visiting with them because we've got such a great team of people who are doing so much of the nuts and bolts that I get to sort of relish in one another's humanity, which is really relationally a lot it creates a lot of joy for me.
Hmm. Yeah. That's beautiful. So is there a specific strategy for, connecting the up and coming generation with your up and coming generation to make sure that it gels?
Yes, absolutely. We have a legacy client program that we created that's deliberately introduced to clients who have grown children or children who are almost at that point. Um, for certain clients based on their relationship with us and their net worth, and depending on some factors like that, we might engage their heirs or future heirs gratis, or we may charge a half price depending on what that looks like. But it's a very affordable thing, and mom and dad usually pay for it. So, we have clients who are paying for our services for their kids as a wedding present, or as a graduation present, or as a, hey, you got your first job, I want you to do this, and I'm paying for it until you're ready to take it over. And it's super inexpensive. And as a result, it is an easy transition to make, and they have their own relationship. They don't have to sit down with me. They get to sit down with somebody who's maybe 3, 4, 5 years older than them and has already done those kinds of things, so that when they're buying their first home, they're working with someone who has bought their first home relatively recently, not before they were born. And
Yeah.
if they're getting married, then they're going through some things in common, or they're becoming moms or dads or whatever, and they're learning and they're going through this together. I mean,
Mhm.
I've grown up with the clients I represent, and we've all
Mhm.
grown up together. I'm in my 50s now, and they remember, a lot of them who've been with me 25, 30 years, are in their mid 70s, early 80s, and they remember when they were 50 and I was, the new kid on the block. And now I'm in my 50s, and we have a completely different relationship after all these years because we're going through some of the same stuff. I had clients in from the West Coast, actually, who came into town yesterday, and met with them, and they said, "How old are you now?" I said, 51. He's like, "I thought you might be 50." I said, "Yeah, because everything hurts now." They said, "Just wait." Just wait. I was like, "You mean that gets worse?" They're like, "Oh yeah." But that's the kind of relationship that you can have with people you really
Mhm.
like and have really helped.
Yeah. I think the relationship you're establishing with, the next generation and your next generation of advisor, just that kind of older sibling, mentor relationship, like that's, you know, valuable beyond the nuts and bolts of just financial management. There's so much relatability. It's like, oh yeah, no, I went through that, 3, 4 years ago, like trying to buy a house in this crazy market. So
Yeah.
that's a tremendously valuable service I've not, encountered yet. So
Well, don't tell anybody. It's a secret. Make sure no
well,
one hears this.
we'll cut that part out. If
There you go. No, it's to me, it's just doing a good job for the entire family. One of the things that we deliver to every client as a deliverable is a family tree. Like, literally, we build something so we know who are the cast of characters in your life. Who are the people who are going to be responsible parties for you? Who are the people for whom you might be responsible? Is there anyone who could predictably leave you money or cost you money? That matters. If you're worried about taking care of grandma and you're trying to educate your third grader, you got a full plate. And so understanding those dynamics and those relationships, and then helping every generation of the family work together and have communication so that you don't accidentally do something that destroys Thanksgiving.
Mm.
Part of this, Chris, when I worked at Leg, the first experience as a legal transfer rep, I would be speaking to people who were bereaved. They had just lost their husband, only to find out that he had never changed the beneficiary on his IRA, and it was still his former wife.
Oh no.
Or he named his kid when his kid was born, but now there are 3 children, and the other 2 he never changed it. Happened all the time. And there's
Wow.
no better way to ruin family relationships than to have money become a problem. It can be a blessing on so many levels, but if you don't do it right and if you don't communicate, if you have 3 children and you name one of them to be responsible for you medically or financially, otherwise, why is that? Is it because you loved him more? Do you trust him more? Or is it because he lives three blocks away and not 3,000 miles away? Is it something simple? And by communicating your wishes, and by communicating your vision for what happens, and by communicating the values that you bring to the table, you can avoid some of that. You can make sure that your kids and grandkids, I'm not going to say you can ensure it, you can't, but you can give them a much better opportunity to stay close. Because when the matriarch or patriarch of any family dies, there tends to be a change in the way holidays are celebrated, the way people travel. If grandma's not there and everyone's not converging at grandma's house, where are you spending whatever holidays you celebrate? And how does that change the family story? Well, that's not financial planning, but in a lot of ways, it's a whole lot more important than, who got the china cabinet.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I want to say I read somewhere that the majority of divorces, like some sort of financial reason, was the primary cause. So I think the services your team is offering, to a lot of uh, extent, is helping keeping families together. Even, you know,
That's the plan.
yeah.
Because if you have, let's just say you have a shore house and everybody gathers there every summer or every whenever, and it's a big deal. It's a family tradition. And then mom and dad die and they leave that shore house to their 5 children. And 2 of the kids want to sell it because they need the money. And 2 of them want to own it, but they don't want to own it together. And one of them wants to use it, but doesn't want to pay for it. And that sounds funny, except that happens every time.
Yeah.
And so you can do some trust planning. You can do some things to alleviate that in advance by having open communication. There are ways to use wealth replacement trusts and other vehicles to say, hey, to the kids who don't want to own this, we're going to provide for them in a different way, and we're going to make sure that this stays in the family. Or we're not going to make sure it stays in the family. We're going to sell it to try and avoid these issues. And that's just one example. It could be anything. It could be the family business. If you own a chain of dry cleaning outlets and one of your kids wants to go into the business and one doesn't, and the business is incredibly valuable, what do? Do you leave the business to that one child and the other child is on his or her own? Do you try and equalize things? Do you name them as 50-50 partners in a business that one of them wants to run and the other one doesn't want anything to do with it? He's a nurse. Like, how do you do that? And those are the questions, and those are the conversations that a true financial advisor and advocate needs to have with families. It's not just about, hey, what growth fund are you in? How'd your portfolio do?
Yeah.
It's not. It's what is so much more important than money. How do you want to be remembered? What do you want to what values do you want to transition to your kids? How do you want your my daughter doesn't remember my father-in-law. He died when she was 2-3 years old. And unfortunately, when he died, I tried to find pictures for my wife so that we could have, some pictures for our daughter. And there weren't many because he always had the camera. We didn't think of that.
Oh my gosh.
So there really aren't pictures, and she doesn't remember him at all. So what I did was I hired a company that does legacy videos. And each of my parents who've been divorced for 30 years and remarried and so forth, but I hired someone to interview each of my parents and do legacy videos so that under no circumstances will my daughter and or her future children not at least get to know my parents in their own words, in their own way.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's more important than, hey, this chair was in Grandpa's study. It's a chair. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
It's just that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. It really is the intangibles here, the things that they're not even realizing that they're coming to you for, that are the most important.
Yes, and when we onboard new clients, and we onboard new clients in an interview, and it's a pretty robust interview, and I think they're surprised by some of the questions that we'll ask. We'll ask who their siblings are, and are their siblings married, and do they have children, and where do they live, and what do they do? And they're like, why do you need to know all of this? And the short answer is, well, if you have a sister and her husband and they have 3 kids and they're in Kansas and they named you in their will to take care of their 3 kids, are you okay with that if something happens to them? They're like, oh, I don't know if they did or not. They probably don't have a will. Oh, well, I wonder what the Kansas courts are going to suggest. And so then they start to nod and say, oh, now I understand. Like, now I get it. If these could be either issues or problems for you, or challenges or opportunities, or any of the above, let's identify them. Let's figure it out. And then let's open communication.
That's awesome. I could ask you questions for the rest of the afternoon, my good man. But I know Miller time is fast approaching.
On the East Coast, it is, yes.
So I like to wrap these interviews up with a rather open-ended question that you can take in any direction that you like.
Uh-huh.
And that question is, what are you working towards?
What am I working towards?
Mm-hmm.
I am working towards satisfying what I refer to lovingly as my joy revenue matrix. And the joy revenue matrix is something that I take our consulting clients. I work with a lot of financial advisors and I help them do this. And they build a very simple matrix about what brings you joy and what brings you revenue and what doesn't bring you joy and what doesn't bring you revenue. And then I try to figure out the ways to spend most of my time, if not all of it, doing the things that bring me joy. They don't have to be revenue producing necessarily, but they've got to bring me joy. I just want to do the things that make me happy and make me feel complete. And so, in my own world, I'm 5 years away from empty nest, which is horrifying. I feel too young for that, but it's coming. And so, what is the next chapter of my life going to be? I hope it's going to be teaching and empowering families with financial literacy and teaching them how to do what we've done for hundreds of families, but for families who can't necessarily afford us. Like, I recognize that not everyone can afford this process or this kind of plan. And while we try to be affordable, it's not for everyone. But I'd love to help families have these conversations. And whether that's podcasting, whether I write additional books, whether I do webinars or speaking, whether I volunteer in various ways, I just want to, in a one-to-many way, I want to help teach people how to do this, the people who want to learn it. And I think if oxygen and money have a lot in common, Chris. And here's what I mean. If you have enough oxygen, you don't think about it. And if you don't have enough oxygen, it's all you think about. And I think money is similar. Money is not the be all end all. And having this much more than that much more than that much more in and of itself really doesn't do anything. But if you're struggling with money, if you're stressed by finances, it's all you're thinking about and it consumes you. And so let's give people some tools to help them. It's complicated. So that's what I'm working towards. I'm working towards being able to do only the things that bring me joy and hopefully the things that change lives.
Well, I will certainly be following your journey there, Eric.
Thank
you.
you.
Very excited to see what the next years and decades bring you. And good luck with the empty nest. That was very, very difficult for my mom. So I can relate.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Being a dad is the greatest thing in the whole world for me. My daughter is an amazing human being, and not just a great daughter, but objectively speaking, a great human. Mm-hmm. And not seeing her every day is going to be tough. I'm going to embrace these next 5 years and really enjoy every little bit of them that I can.
Yeah, gotta relish that. My dad dropped me off at college with my mom, and then they drove home. My dad was like pretty upset. And they drove home, and my dad turns to my mom and he goes, "I think I'm getting sick. I don't feel good." Mm-hmm. And she's like, "You're upset that your best friend just left the house and is now, 2 hours away." Right. He's like, No, I think I'm sick.
Yeah. We don't like to admit these kinds of things as big, strong men, but it's true. 100%. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome. And where can folks find out more about you and about your book?
So the website for the company is bfgfa.com. And you can also check out the book on Amazon. It's called Don't Retire, Graduate. Or you can go to brotmanmedia.com and find books and articles and online courses and financial literacy tools, most of which are free and the others are inexpensive.
Got it. It seems like that's a through line through your story, is kind of setting up schools or, academies to help the world.
It's not it's a labor of love. It absolutely to see that aha moment. And we do corporate financial wellness programs where we'll sit down with one employee after another at big companies, and they've never had financial advice ever from anywhere. And if they have, it's from a salesperson or it's been lousy. And the aha moments are so palpable. They're so powerful that I just thrive on that. And our whole team does. We just really love when people get it. You see the light bulb go off. It's like, oh, that's how I pay down a mortgage, or that's how I finance a car, or that's how I, clean this particular cash flow issue up, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. This was a very inspiring episode, Eric. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending the time with me and the audience here.
It's been my pleasure. I wish you and the show continued success, and we'll be enjoying watching you grow.
Awesome, and we'll definitely have to have you back on because I like to let the interviews kind of go where they need to go. We have questions that we want to talk about. We got to none of those questions because you were talking about stuff that's way more important. So
Well, and I'm happy to stick to the script, so to speak, but
no.
but that's not what moves the envelope.
Mm-hmm. Yep. This interview, it needed to go this way, and I'm very glad it did. So until next time, Eric, we'll be watching your amazing journey and enjoying the last couple years of having your kids in the nest. And I'm sure they'll be great out of the nest as well. And to all the listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in, and keep on growing out there, everybody.